Welcome back to another edition of the High School Football Blitz, brought to you by the Austin American-Statesman. And as always, I'm with Thomas T.J. Jones. And Thomas, interesting week 3. We had some interesting scenarios, but let me start with the weather has been the dominant theme of football, at least in September. What's your most unusual weather story that happened this year?
You know, I'll be honest, I think a lot of it has much ado about nothing. I mean, you saw last week, the weather forecast was bad, and some teams even moved games from Friday night. And what happened at the game I was at, Vandegrift-Hendrickson, oh, it poured, it rained cats and dogs before kickoff. But once they kicked the game off, nothing. And Vandegrift and Hendrickson, a little wet turf, but they both played clean football. A couple of fumbles, that was it.
The most interesting one for me was Hutto having to scratch their game against El Paso del Valle. Del Valle was going to travel 591 miles to get here, but with the weather situation tenuous as it was, they didn't want to, take a chance on driving that far, only be told that they can't, which just goes to show that teams in this area sometimes have problems getting other teams to play them. They had to go all the way to El Paso to find an opponent. Hutto has trouble finding opponents, as does Cedar Park and Lake Travis some years.
When you find districts with such disparities in the number of teams, we have some 9-team districts, we have some 6-team districts. It's inherently a problem. I feel for these guys that have to travel that far.
Absolutely. Game ball.
Hey, I'm looking at Austin High's Charles Wright, the sophomore quarterback, threw for 350 yards as the Maroons beat Lehman pretty handily, 47-14. 3 touchdowns in addition to that, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. This guy had 6 touchdowns. He's a sophomore. He's getting better each week. He is Austin High in a good position to make the playoffs this year.
And Mike Rosenthal, a happy man with that one.
Big Mike.
I'm going to go with Hudson Card. I mean, I know that we don't always pick Lake Travis players to be player of the week because they're so dominant, but Hudson Card, 337 yards. He accounted for 5 touchdowns, ran for 50 yards, and he did it all in one half. 42-7 at halftime against Bowie.
Yep.
They pulled all their players, all their big players in the second half. But Hudson Card, if he keeps this up, another happy man will be Tom Herman in a couple years when he plays for them.
Yeah, and about 100,000 coaches in Royal Memorial Stadium.
Exactly. What did you learn from week 3?
I'm starting to look as districts start, and the ones that didn't start this past week, they start coming up. I'm looking at Class 5A. They're split into 2 divisions now. This District 13 5A Division 2 is very interesting to me. I think it's wide open. Brennan was the favorite, but they're 1-2. Bastrop was 2-0 until they got beat by Conley last week. And Marble Falls is 2-1, but all they've done is play a bunch of 4A teams. So really, Bastrop, Marble Falls are the only teams with winning records in that district. I think it's wide open. I'm fascinated to watch this district play out.
What did I learn? I learned that Hendrickson really is for real. Both of us knew that they were going to be good before the season.
Yep.
They went 10-4, which means they went 4 rounds deep into the playoffs last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it at least that far this year. They're outscoring their 2 opponents 60-10 by average. They had one game, rained out early. But Hendrickson, we're going to see them at the end of the year.
Well, we'll find out how real they are this upcoming week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me which team this year that you think is better than you expected?
You look at, we're talking about district play starting. Look what Anderson did Friday against Del Valle in the District 25 6A opener. This is an Anderson program that won 1 game last year. They got a new coach, Daniel Hunter, was promoted from coordinator, and they handled Del Valle. They're 2-1. They're running the ball well. They've had some injuries at quarterback, but they're playing tough, hard-nosed football. They're just making plays. Jordan Hood had a pick-6 in that win over Del Valle this past week. I like what Anderson's doing. They're putting themselves in a position to kind of make a run at a playoff spot, which I wouldn't have expected when the season started.
They probably should be 3-0, but they blew the game to McCallum.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Leander Glenn. This is their first year of varsity competition. You don't know what to expect from a first-year school, but you don't expect them to be winning games. But they won their opener. And I mean, their first game ever.
First game, yeah.
First game ever. And, you know, hats off. I know they've got seniors, whereas the Pflugerville Weiss does not have seniors. But Leander Glen, they're in a situation where they draw from a large area in that part of town. So in a few years, watch out for Leander Glen to be an excellent football team.
Well, and that win over McCallum was particularly impressive because this is, as we know, this is a good MAC team that had won, I believe, 17 consecutive regular season games. Glenn showed the ability to pull out a close game against a team used to winning.
And McCallum, like you said, is really good. That'll do it for this edition of the High School Blitz with TJ. I'm Rick, and as we like to say in the business, we hope your favorite team wins.